Good evening, everybody. It's at moments like that you hope for a proxy battle and a dissident slate of directors and nominees and someone who will unseat you. And there are a few of those going on in the world right now, and Rowe Price is mixed up in a couple of them. So it's been kind of a crazy week. It's annual meeting season in America, and there's a lot going on in terms of corporate governance battles. Thanks to Don. Thanks to so many of our board members who are here tonight. Thanks to the great staff. It's been a great year for the GBC. That video is so inspiring. When you look at the vignettes and the individual stories, and I think the common theme underlying all of them is one of economic growth and job creation. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes. As Don and others have pointed out, it's been a busy year. It's been a very productive year legislatively. You never get everything you want, but it was a good time for GBC. And we continue our mission to try to make the environment in our region better in terms of economic development, job creation, which is one of my foremost objectives, new business development, new business formation, and improving the overall degree of economic vibrancy in the greater Baltimore region. So I'm going to make just a couple of very brief comments about competitiveness, which Don touched on jobs and job creation, which I think is mission one, and one of my favorite topics, taxation. So first, competitiveness. Don mentioned the GBC seminal study, Gaining a Competitive Edge. Charlie Monk, our former chair, is over here to my left. Charlie was instrumental in the drafting of that report a couple of years ago, as was the GBC staff, and were so many former economic development professionals in our region. And so becoming more competitive year in, year out really is objective number one. And it really is what underlies the growth of our economy, and it's what we must focus on. And despite so many of our strengths, I'm always struck by what a great place this is to live and work. It's a vibrant downtown economy. It's a great place to live, whether you live in the city or in any of the surrounding counties. Until today, I was about to say the climate was welcoming. I looked out my window this afternoon. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And we just live in a great environment with great universities, a developed workforce, great companies, great not-for-profits. And I'm always struggling with why we think we're so good and outsiders on occasion think we're not quite as great as we think. And so I'm always struck when I look at the various studies in terms of economic development rankings and business environment studies, and we always rank very, very well in a competitive sense when it comes to the environment for innovation, the environment for entrepreneurial activity. I recall the governor citing one study that ranked us number one in terms of an environment for entrepreneurs. And then you see so many other studies that rank us more lowly. And so I think one of the compelling questions is, why does CEO Magazine, which is a very well-regarded magazine amongst corporate executives, rank us 41st in the country in terms of economic competitiveness? Yet why are we such a good environment, a good place to start up companies and invest in small and growing companies? And there's something of a bifurcation, I think, in terms of some of the data. And in many cases, it often depends on what the study is looking at. So we rate very highly in some things. We have many great advantages. I think from thinking back on last year, the environment is better today than it was 12 months ago. So the macro is good. But when it comes to taxation and regulatory burden, we still have more work to do. We have to ask the following two questions. How can a state with the advantages I cited and with so many other natural blessings rank so lowly in some studies, and what can we do to improve it? So let's talk a bit about jobs. As I mentioned at our meeting last year, job creation is one of the GBC's most important priorities. I think it's a priority to everyone in this room. And the environment is getting better, both nationally and also in Maryland. Less so in Baltimore City, although Baltimore City has also showed signs of improvement. So gains have been steady, if unspectacular. And to quote our governor, Baltimore Sun article a couple of months ago, Governor O'Malley basically said, "There is no progress without jobs." And if you think of the many challenges of our region, job creation will address and help solve so many of the challenges, whether it's crime, whether it's poverty, whether it's housing degradation, job creation solves an awful lot of problems. But we have many challenges. So unemployment has ticked down 0.2% from the last year, from 6.8 to 6.6%. Again, the situation in the city is a little less favorable, with unemployment in the upper 9s. But a complicating issue for us in Maryland, and it used to be such a sign of strength, is the dependence we have on public sector employers. In the first 10 years of the new century, that was viewed as a tremendous advantage, and public sector job creation was huge and was important and was a big part of our story. But when you think about the fact that 1 in 5 Marylanders work for a governmental entity, federal, state, or local, and you think of the degree of which we're dependent on the federal government, so about 6% of our employees are citizens in the state, members of the workforce, work for the federal government. That excludes people who live here but work in DC. So the number is probably much higher. So when you think of the fact, and the national average, by the way, for federal employment is about 2% of the workforce. So we are somewhere between 3 and 4 times more dependent on federal jobs than the rest of the country. And every day when you open the newspaper or turn on the television and you see what's going on in Washington in terms of fiscal headwinds facing not only the federal government, but also many other governmental entities, we have something of a major headwind to deal with. And so job creation in the private sector is really all we can look to in terms of growth over the course of the next couple of years, raising the GBC's responsibilities to an incredibly high level. You know, our company, we will increase our workforce by about 3% this year, so that's about in pace with the national average. But it is not dynamic growth, and there aren't enough T. Rowe Prices and Under Armours and Johns Hopkins hospitals to go around to really accelerate the rate of employment growth. And so we have to rely on a new generation of companies. I recall saying last year we have to do the work ourselves. Pfizer is not moving to Baltimore. It's up to companies like Graybug, Red Owl Analytics, or iLighting, innovative startups. Don showed some of the video at the tech shop. These are the companies that will provide the job creation for us going forward. Another perennial issue, and one of my pet peeves, because when you look at these rankings, taxation is always a big issue. And so this is a perennial competitiveness challenge. And so simply put, we have to become more competitive tax-wise, particularly at the corporate income tax level. I recently read a very interesting book, Killing Kennedy, somewhat controversial, written by Bill O'Reilly, talking about the progress of the Kennedy administration up until his assassination. And JFK said in 1962, his foremost priority was a substantial reduction and revision in our tax system, the one step above all essential to making us more competitive in the world economy. JFK, Democrat, 1962. And thinking about some of the legislative accomplishments Don mentioned, I think the one area where we came up a bit short in the legislative session this year is making some type of progress in terms of tax burden in the state. And when you look at our surrounding states, whether it be Pennsylvania or Delaware or Virginia, relative tax rates are a big deal, both at the individual and secondarily at the corporate level. A couple of weeks ago, Raytheon announced it was moving a cybersecurity business it has to Northern Virginia. Why not Maryland? We have all of the cyber assets in the state of Maryland, somewhat reminiscent of Northrop Grumman's decision a couple of years ago, and this is something we have to continue to focus in on. Tax considerations drive real-world decisions, and we should aspire to reduce taxes on things that we want to promote: capital formation, income, job creation. We should reduce taxes on the things we want and raise taxes from time to time on things we want less of: alcohol consumption, tobacco consumption, arguably gasoline consumption. So we have to use our tax code to incent economic behavior to promote job creation. And we have to reduce tax burden, again, on things we want to promote and raise it on things we want to reduce. And that's one of the Rogers tenets of tax theory, if there were such a thing. And hopefully over the course of the next year we can make some progress on this. I don't think we need to make huge progress. I think baby steps of progress are all we really need to enhance the competitiveness of our local business environment. The last time I looked at the data, the corporate income tax generated about 4% of state tax receipts. so we're not overly dependent on corporate taxation at the state level. And I think even baby steps of change with respect to corporate taxation would do a great deal to enhance the competitiveness of our business climate. Now, lastly, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, I've quoted Governor O'Malley, I've quoted JFK, and now I would like to quote Joe Friday from Dragnet. So let me spend a minute addressing some of the recent media coverage of my company. Out at cocktail hour, basically everybody wants to know what T. Rowe Price is up to. And I thought, as Joe Friday often asked, just the facts. No speculation, no conjecture, no media articles, just the facts. A few of us in my company had a great meeting with the mayor a couple of days ago. Actually, maybe it was yesterday. To talk about some of the coverage in the press about some speculation about what we might do. And so to Dragnet, to the memory of Mr. Friday, here are 5 facts. No conjecture. We've spent our entire 75-year career within a few blocks of this hotel. Fact number 1. Fact number 2, our employees and clients and corporate visitors enjoy the amenities of a vibrant downtown economy in terms of access to transportation, access to great hotels and restaurants, and access to a vibrant daily environment. Fact number 3, our key personnel serve on virtually every charitable, educational, and not-for-profit activity in the city. Fact number 4, we have told our employees that our priority is to remain in the downtown area. And fact number 5, it is highly unlikely that we can be bought or paid off to move to a different location. These are not stories, these are simple facts. And based on much of the conjecture and coverage recently, I thought I would simply, as Joe Friday would say, just the facts, please. Now that having been said, it's a long time until our lease is up in 2017. That is also a fact. But I think facts are good and conjecture is bad. So let me conclude again by thanking Don and the great staff of the GBC. It is an honor to chair this board. It is an honor to work with so many members of the board who are here tonight. And let's continue to work together to make Greater Baltimore a great place, an even greater place to live and work. Thank you all very much.